Information processing. What is information processing? What is information processing theory? Information processing is an approach to cognitive development that is aimed to understand how information is encoded into memory. In 1950, George A. Miller was the founder of cognition studies in psychology and the one to introduce us to what is called information processing theory. He, recogni- he recognized that humans were able to hold chunks of information as well as have short term memory. The concept of being able to hold chunks of information and the limited capacity of short term memory became part of a theory on how we process information. The human brain has a capacity that is unlike no other. It can encode, store, and retrieve information and experiences. The ability to recall information gives us the power to learn, adapt from the past experiences, and build on new relationships. When creating new memory, we must allow that the knowledge to be understood in a form of physical and chemical stimuli. That information is then altered to be saved within the brain and recalled later for either short term or long term memory. Memory, a part of information processing. The first step of creating new memory is allowing the information to be perceived in a form of chemical and physical stimuli. The information is then converted to be stored within the brain and then recalled later for either short term or long term memory. Memory development is making connection to things and people in the environment, which makes it easier to remember what was the experience. As humans learn to categorize information, the process becomes easier. A new stimulus that is experienced can make it much easier to store information if it can be paired with previous experiences. The new knowledge must be processed successfully and linked to previous knowledge for future retrieval. Now we have why is it important to successfully move information from working, which is the short-term memory, to long-term memory for effective information processing. Well, working memory is essential for a variety of cognitive tasks that's temporarily stored and manage a limited amount of information. Working memory is also known as a short-term memory, which is considered only one component of the larger mechanisms of holding and manipulating information. As humans, as humans, we can hold things in our mind and mentally manipulate information over a short period of time. For example, remembering a telephone number, a PIN number, or web address, while finding a pen or paper to write down are ways that humans rely on our working memory. It is important to move information from working memory to long-term memory to avoid working memory overload. By reducing processing demands, there should be steps taken to modify learning activities. Working memory can hold only about 7 items or chunks of information at a time. It is also being said that new information held in working memory, if not rehearsed, is lost within 15 to 30 seconds. Information that is not filtered or sorted out can be lost if it remains in working memory. Once information is held in long-term memory, it is organized and stored in the domain-specific knowledge structure known as schema. Epis- Episodic and semantic memory are memories that depend on one another for potential retrieval in the future. The brain processes various sensory components that were involved in involved with the event, whether it was behavior, false memory, emotion, depression, or other condition. It is the kind of memory that will in fact affect how well information is being processed, because recollection of events or experience can vary on how important it was in one's life. The two, episodic and semantic, somatic memory, has a unique way of functioning in a very complex manner. Although they have separate functions, they both obviously are interrelated memory systems. The mind may keep various information from several sources, whether it's an event, an experience, or even an episode, for long-term memory. The episodic memory associates with the autonoetic conscious, which involves the ability to mentally recall an event that happens at a point in time. It is considered the remembering part of the two systems, whereas the semantic memory is the knowing part of the noetic conscious. It is the conscious of awareness of facts, concepts, words, and meaning, but has no connection to own experience. New information in the retrieval process. New information must be processed successfully to be able to link to previous knowledge for future retrieval. However, studies show that Lineweaver, Berger, and Hertzog experiment and created the GBMI, which is the general belief about memory instrument to measure the impact of aging on memory in the general population. Respondents use visual analog scales to rate the memory ability of adults different ages in their lives, from ages 20 through 90. The experiment replicates the finding of previous studies that adults of all ages accept memory expect memory to decline with age. However, these expectations also differ as a function of the type of memory being considered. As we look at long-term memory, it carries a huge amount of information from a day to a lifetime. For example, memory's rating for recent events showing a larger magnitude of decline with age than memory rating from more remote experiences. The effectiveness of information processing becomes less efficient for retrieval with advanced age. Due to limitation in the ability to identify and categorize data, it is important to understand age-related cognitive changes and how it no longer becomes easier to retrieve information. Changes in storage and retrieval of information occurs for all age groups. Memory development is making connection to things and people in the environment, which makes it easier to remember what was experienced. A new stimulus that is experienced can make it much easier to store information if it could be paired, like we said previously, to a previous experience. As humans learn to categorize information, the process becomes easier, but as one ages, the access of these information become limited for retrieval. Environment influences information processing. Intelligence across the lifespan is intelligent across a lifespan is a crucial topic in human development, because intelligence is of great importance for facing schoolwork and everyday life. In research, studies show that the development dynamic of cognitive ability from late childhood to middle adulthood, thus present longitude study contributes to the existing body of research by investigating the changes and stability of intelligence from late childhood, ages 12, to middle adulthood, ages 52. More specifically, we tackle two key aspects of a lifespan, intellectual development over 40-year time period concerning changes in the structural intelligence embedded into a framework of age differential or the differential hypothesis and the differential stabilities, that is, the ranking order of a person's intelligence level across age. The way we process information is based on our environment influences, so stability is important to have as it manifests itself for successful information intake. Intelligence comes with the appropriate linking knowledge and have the ability to be productively retrieves information for future uses, whether you are in school, work, or in everyday life. How episodic and semantic memory work with an individual with autism? Well, in recent studies, evidence suggests that in autism spectrum disorder, episodic memory system reveal sub impairment on task requirement participants to learn new information or even give recollection of personal experiences. But intact performance on general knowledge tasks or something learned, which is the semantic memory. Information processing and how it's used in the autism spectrum disorder unit in the education system. In the future, as a board certified behavior analyst working with children with autism that struggle with processing the following information, which is the executive function, the central coherence, and the theory mind. Usually with the executive function, understanding how information is organized for task completion, as it helps us with the ability to remember, focus, plan, and respond appropriately. With a child or with an individual with autism, it doesn't work like that. So intervention therapy can be used to help struggle with these features for information processing. Same with the central coherence and the theory of the mind. And in order for someone to understand how autism's, in order to understand how a person on autism spectrum experience the world, it is important to understand how he or she process the information. So definitely intervention therapy would be needed. What is schema? Schema is an information processing model that is used to understand perception and cognition. Perception and cognition play a huge role in successful development of schema. Perception is how one understands and interprets the information being received. How new knowledge and experience is encoded and aligned represents our mental status. Perception is about how relevant or how difficult the subject and one's ability to succeed. The cognitive process is the attention that is needed for the ability to evaluate the information that one's environment and filtering out the information that is less important. As for the amount of attention that is devoted to the surrounding effect of how information is encoded, it is solely up to the successful is solely up to how successful the information is received and digested for future retrieval. The potential concern of schema is receiving less than perfect information and having to effectively process the information, which can end up being filtered and broken down if we do not want to lose information, lose the information. False memory is basically the distortion of information processing. If we understand how information processing goes, then anything that will basically distort information can affect how we remember events or encounter, and therefore the knowledge that we have can be impeded and obstructed for, let's say, future retrieval or any of the sort. As a conclusion, in information processing theory is the cognitive system that is geared towards explaining how information is encoded. As we expose um, to the information, our attention signals for short-term memory, which later is encoded into our brain for long-term memory for later retrieval. The method that is utilized to move knowledge from working memory to long-term memory more effectively is by understanding the material that is being taught. It is important that the strategies are reinforced to become effective to long-term memory. Knowing the difference between remembering and understanding the information is important. Engaging in some type of activity for purposes of helping to remember what is understood. Another way to gain effective memory development is to pair previous knowledge with new knowledge. The episodic and semantic memories are experienced and events that occur during the lifetime, and semantic memories are originated from episodic memories. Although information processing is basically how we are able to function in life, for some, it can be limited due to age or disability. Thank you.